Hello, welcome to Gurukul's CAT 100 series, a series that's designed specifically to take you from your study room to the corporate boardroom. I am Prady Sharma, and this is Verbal Mastery with Prady.
Hello guys, welcome to yet another video of Gurukul's 100 Days to CAT series from study room to boardroom. This is Pradyumna Sharma, and what we're going to do is we're going to read this passage, we're going to understand this. So, what you have to do right now is I'll show you the passage in parts. I want you to pause the video there, read the passage, and then we'll go into the explanation of the passage. Okay, so this is the first part. Pause your video here, read it, take maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll go for the second part. Okay, this is the second part of the passage. Pause it here, read it for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll go for the questions. Now, if you want to attempt this passage as a test, please sign up to www.thegurukul.org.in and take the 100 Days to CAT series. All of these passages are uploaded as tests, so you can take it as a test and then come back to understand the passage and the explanations. Now, this is your question number one. You can take up till 1 minute, solve this, and then move forward. Yes, your question number two. Pause the video here, solve it for a minute in case you have not taken the test, and then we'll move forward. This is your question number three. Pause this video, solve this question, and then we'll move forward. This is your question number four. Pause the video, solve this question, and then we'll move forward. Okay, now that you have finished all the questions, let's go back to the passage and understand the passage better. How should you actually solve it in your CAT exam? Right. So what does the passage say? The Green Revolution is a paradigm of concerted effort of intervention in the name of global development. That means what? Green Revolution is a way of thinking, it's a way of, a complete effort. A concerted effort is nothing but an effort that's put forward by multiple people, okay? Of intervention in the name of global development. That means they've used the name of global development to intervene in some countries' efforts to develop. During this time, developed countries, in an attempt to modernize the global cultural agricultural sector, sought to export the industrial agricultural model of production. So, what did the developed countries do? They made an attempt, they tried to modernize the global agricultural sector. So they tried to change the global agricultural sector. How did they do that? They did this by exporting their agricultural model of production, which was industrial in nature. So at the start of Green Revolution, the US, Canada, and other advanced European countries were giving their surplus crops. That means the crops which are in surplus, which are more excess, okay, which were excess to them, to the poorer countries in the form of food aid in order to mitigate widespread hunger that parts of the post-colonial world was witnessing. That means what? There were some poorer countries which were not having enough crops, which had a lot of hunger issues, okay, to stop that, to mitigate that, okay, all right, to stop that, to mitigate that, these developed countries, they try to give their excess crops to these smaller countries, or the countries which are experiencing global hunger. Crops that weren't previously prevalent across the globe, such as wheat, were being transferred and from the global north to south in massive quantities. What does that mean? Okay, from global north to south, a lot of these crops like wheat and all, which weren't actually there in these other countries, were being transported there. This occurred until developing countries such as India became heavily dependent on the food aid, much of which were crops that could not be grown locally. That means crops which cannot be actually grown inside India. These other countries, those developed countries were exporting it to us, and we got very, very reliant on that. We got dependent on those crops. Okay. In order for that dependent countries, that means countries like India, to keep receiving foreign assistance, the US made it conditional for the recipients of the food aid to adopt the whole industrial model of agriculture. So, if you still want to keep getting these crops from us, you have to take in the industrial model of agriculture. That's what these countries have told. So, one line summary for this would be what? We can think of the main ideas in this manner, in the manner that green revolution was there. Okay, and this green revolution tried to export. What did it try to export? Surplus crops. Okay, from where? From developed countries to underdeveloped countries. Okay, till when? Till these countries became dependent. Till the countries became dependent on those crops, and to continue. And what was in this form of? This was in the form of food aid. Okay. So to continue the supply of these crops, what was the condition? The condition was adopt industrial agricultural model. Now, the first question that should come to your mind is that what is this industrial cultural agricultural model? Now, the revolution was titled green not just because of its connection to agriculture, but also was used as a tool to fight the red or communist revolution. That means what? The green revolution, the title did not come because of the connection that it had to agriculture. It came because it was used as a tool to fight the Red Revolution or the Communist Revolution. The West believed that the hunger had the power to drive these people to peasant revolutions. So food aid was used explicitly to fight the spread of communism. That means what? If you were hungry, then you would get into some kind of peasant revolutions, into some kind of revolutions where equality would have been preferred, communism would have been preferred. So to curb that, to stop that, these Western countries, you know, gave food aid. They gave the green revolution as a means. Okay, while efforts were made to increase food security in poor nations by helping them to move, to being self-sufficient, the industrial model of agriculture that was exported to recipient countries had a complex system of necessary inputs. Okay, that means what? While these countries made an effort to increase food security, that means everyone had some minimum amount of food at least so that they won't stay hungry. Okay, that in itself is good. But the problem came when this came with a condition of industrial model of agriculture. Now, that industrial model of agriculture which was sent to us had some necessary inputs, had a system of necessary inputs. So, in order for yields to actually increase, farmers needed fertilizers, pesticides, and new irrigation systems, a costly chain of requirements that cut profits for the farmers even when their yields rose. That means even when you were able to get better results, okay, it was still going to be very costly for the farmers because now they had to depend on pesticides, fertilizers, irrigation systems, and all of that. Okay. The countries that were dependent on food aid now became dependent on the transnational corporations that provided agricultural inputs that the industrial model required. That means the companies which were providing these kind of fertilizers and all, these countries became dependent on those things also and those companies also. Okay, the Green Revolution was able to increase crop yields at least in the short term. So in the short term, for some time, these crop yields increased. Okay, before the land was degraded by the increased need for fertilizers and pesticides. Obviously, if you keep on using pesticides and these kind of fertilizers, obviously the land will become barren, right? The land will lose its own nutrition. So till then, in the short term, the kind of increase was there in crop yield, in the crop results. Okay. But in the process, it exacerbated vulnerable populations' poverty in countries that are now considered underdeveloped. So, in the process of increasing that crop yield in the short term, it made the poverty in those countries much more severe. And now those countries are what we call as the underdeveloped countries. So now what are the main ideas that I get from here? First thing, Green Revolution, title green because it fought Red Revolution, which was nothing but communism. Okay. Second one is another major idea is dependence on transnational. Okay. Companies for what? Agri products. Okay. Now, third idea that I get is that yields, crop yields increased in short term. Okay. But poverty also grew. Okay, so these are the ideas that we get from this particular passage, right? So now let's go into the questions. Which of the following, according to the passage, is the reason for the revolution was named as the Green Revolution? Again, we've seen this in one of our ideas. Yes, what was the reason? It was not about agriculture or anything. It was about fighting communism. It was a tool for fighting communism. Correct? So because it was colored green is definitely the wrong answer. Because of its connections to agriculture, all of us might be, thinking that yes, it's because of agriculture, but in the passage, he's clearly said it's not because of agriculture alone, right? So this is not the reason. Because it was used as a tool to fight the red, yes, this was what he's given in the passage, so this should be our suitable answer. Because of its connections to agriculture, but also was used as a tool to the fight the red or communist revolution. Now see, if we are looking at C and D, now we can say that C is only a partial answer. So this is a partial answer. This is a partial answer. But this symbolizes both the possibilities. So this should be our correct answer. Yes. Now let's go into the question number 2. Which of the following according to the passage is not false? The Green Revolution was able to increase crop yields in the long term. Now see, is this true or false? This is supposed to be clearly false, right? Because he said long term, but actual may it happened only in short term, right? So this should not be our answer for is not false question, correct? Farmers needed fertilizers, pesticides, and new irrigation systems. Yes, definitely this is true. So this is not false. So this may be our possible answer. Dependency theory reflects the body of mid 20th century heroes by various intellects. First things first, ये तो कहीं पे बोला ही नहीं, right? So this is an irrelevant answer, right? This is an irrelevant answer, so this won't be our correct answer. Now see, D says A and B. That means both this and this should be true, whereas this is not true, right? So D cannot be correct. So the right answer is B. Now let's go to third question. Which of the following according to the passage is not true or are not true? A few countries were dependent on food aids. Now this is clearly true. Yes, there are a few countries which were dependent. Correct. The US didn't make it conditional for recipients of food aid to adopt. Now, the US made it a condition, right? So this is clearly false. This statement is clearly false. Some food was being transferred and from the global north to south in massive quantities. Again, this is given in the passage in the first para of the passage. This has been told to us. Yes, so this also becomes true. So obviously A and C are true. But the question says isn't or aren't true. That means which is false. So clearly B is false. B will be the answer of this particular question, right? Now the last question. Which of the following, according to the passage, was taken as a step by some of the countries to diminish the hunger? Okay. Money was being sent to the countries that were suffering from hunger so that they could buy some food for themselves. See, nowhere has he mentioned that money was being sent. He said that food aid was being sent, and this food aid was nothing but surplus crops. Right? So this definitely is not the correct answer. A committee was set up to evaluate the potential situations that they could be helped. Obviously, no committee has been mentioned in the passage, so this should also not be our correct answer. The countries were focusing on their own yields and there was no need to take any aid. No, countries took aid, right? So obviously this also won't be the correct answer. Now look at this. Some countries were giving their surplus crops to poorer countries in the form of food aid. Now this is absolutely correct. This is what the passage talks about. So the correct answer will be D.
Hope you enjoyed learning from today's session.
This series is designed to help you with your CAT preparation and practice daily. We are with you in this journey.
To watch the next video, click here. And to watch Gurukul's CAT 100 series, study room to boardroom, the entire playlist, click here.
If you learned from today's session, like, share, and subscribe.